there. Alex, you've got some input on the state of education in the Netherlands.
And people may be wondering, Brian, how that affects them in their own countries. But the Netherlands took very early a very different route to educational freedom and diversity than other Western countries did, because of the strong input, particularly by Calvinists, who were concerned about the state of secularization and globalism being taught even a century ago. So this is a bellwether. This is a canary in the coal mine for other countries. And I myself taught in one of the Dutch Christian Reformed schools when I first came to the Netherlands, which is why I'm perhaps more exercised and more familiar with this material than most. We'll put on screen now an article by Bijbels Beraad MV, which is a rough equivalent to North America's Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood. And they're reporting here, based on reporting by the Dutch Calvinist daily newspaper Reformatorisch Dagblad, that the new citizenship law framework which has come in is putting under pressure the century-old arrangements which were brought into place. So the detail we'll put on screen now is that there is fundamental disagreement between what the government wants. Of course, the cabinet has just resigned, but this was just before that, and also what the education authorities, formal and informal, want, and what the umbrella organizations of all the Christian schools, Roman Catholic, left-wing Protestant and Calvinist, what they want. If we go on to the next slide, you'll see what's going on here, which is that the very year after the Dutch Constitution obtained its unique Article 23, which we'll go into detail about in a moment, which set the boundaries for the current arrangements. The next year, 1918, this organization, the Onderwijsraad, or Education Council, was established by statute. You can see their logo there, implying building blocks, and you have to read it bottom to top, which is perhaps an interesting detail. Here in the report, which is what's produced this concern, this Education Council, not a part of the government, allegedly, is saying we have to set limits to the century-old freedom of education because we have this thing which I was reporting on recently called the democratic rule of law, a very strange hybrid beast which I was reporting on when the Dutch intelligence agency AIVD was recently reporting on threats to the supposed order. Here's its main write-up. The covering note for the PDF report says that we're not allowed to allow parents who have so much freedom in these school boards in the Dutch arrangements because of this 1917 law, constitutional law, which can't be overturned without a 2/3 majority in Parliament. We can't give them all the freedom because we also need certainty of law and equality before the law. And we now have a society that puts non-discrimination and equal treatment above all. In addressing this constitutional problem they have uniquely in the West, which is why it's so indicative for other countries, the Education Council is saying, what is good education? And here's the sting, really, for those Dutch Calvinists a century ago who also paved the way for example, free Jewish education in the moral sense, free from interference as well as free to the parent. And all the others, the Steiner schools, the Jena-Plan schools, for which the Netherlands is well known, all funded by the taxpayer's dime. That's what's unique. What the government is now coming out with its allied bodies like this Education Council is, well, yes, but we have social values, you see, so you can't be taking our money and having a free hand in the curriculum if our values are threatened. And the council admits in these various extracts I'm putting on screen that the problem is they cannot tell a school board off, controlled by parents and their own ethical understanding, who have the whip hand over the teachers and the curriculum uniquely, even though it's government funded. They can't do that where there's no law in place. They're basically nudging the legislator in the Netherlands to say, come up and have some more restrictions on these schools because there's too much freedom right now. And children are coming out of school with the idea that there's something beyond and above the state and the values that we all share in common, like not saying anything bad about homosexual marriage. If you want more detail, we have a 2-part article by a Dutch constitutionalist on the website called Ultimately, the Netherlands Has No Actual Constitution. Part 1 talks about this killing of the Dutch constitution by saying, well, you have absolute rights except where we say you don't have them. And part 2 goes into the concept of arbitrary rule. For those who want a really deep dive, and this will be in the show notes as everything is under the upload of this video, you can use a machine translator to find out what's being said on this website, de Nederlandse Grondwet, about the whole unique background, let's put that on screen, of Article 23. The current arrangements. So even if you get a unique Western country that put in black and white that it was constitutional freedom that parents can have schooling which doesn't actually give them other people's values, give their children other people's values, there are ways and means. If we move on to